Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. We're all getting ready for Halloween, so I got my my wizard hat on, and we are getting ready. And what are we going to do tonight? We are going to study Cheiro's Language of the Handbook. Yes, it's going to be a good read, and I have it on PDF. So we are going to look at it like that. I'm pulling up the pages right now so that we can get to it. And it's who doesn't want to know how to read their poem? You know, this I got an old version of it. This is from 1900. Cheiro's Language of the Hand. I hope you all enjoy it. We're going to go through this little bit by little bit. We're going to start out in the beginning. And we'll run through the dedication. What do I bring? What kind of life? 'Tis but a little thing. A flower I loved in youth. A flower upon the wayside thrown. Yet one the lips of truth have known. And it is itself a truth. Cheiro. And preface. And I will share with all of you here. Let's see, I just got to pull it up. And we are just going to go through this little bit by little bit. I ain't going to read the whole thing because we want to get down to the nitty gritty. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate all your precious time that you're spending with me to learn about language of the hand. The hand. Yes. So tonight we're going to do that. Who doesn't like a good palm reading during Halloween? Now, I didn't really know much about palm reading, and I still don't, but there's something to it. And I got my Ana Karana shirt on. It's giving me all the power I need. So here we go. I am going to share with you the screen number 2. And there we go. So there we go. To believe is to perceive, either by the senses or by the soul. The distinction constitutes 2 classes, the skeptic and the believer, which, though depend on, may yet be incomprehensible to either other, but both being necessary to establish the balance of thought. They are forced into existence and become the links and cross-links which make life's endless chain from thought to truth. In placing the following work before the public, though deeply conscious of my responsibility, I am also conscious of good that may be derived through such study. I have therefore endeavored to write not any distinct class, but for all, believing in the ultimate universe acceptance of those natural laws which constitute nature and control mankind, and which are particularly amplified by the study of the hand. Wow, doesn't that sound interesting? And we're going to get right on this. If I can only find a bookmark. Okay, and I got my little light so I can see. Thank you all for being patient with me. We're going to get right on this. Okay, and that was the preface of this. I got to remember to turn the pages. And the special edition in 2nd edition, also the 3rd and 4th, I've added several important, interesting hands that I consider helpful and instructive to the student in the pursuit of this study. Defense, shapes of the hand and fingers. Let's go to defense. We all did the preface already, so let's just start right out there. We're going to learn it all together. We might not go through the whole book, but it's up to you. And if you want the PDF, I have the PDF. Just send me an email, and I'll send it out to you. Okay, let's see. What do we got? Defense. The greatest truth may lie in the smallest things. The greatest good in what we do we most despise. The greatest light may break from darkest skies. The greatest chord from in weakness strings. Cheiro. If any science, art, or work has been or is, for the beginning, it is object, and it's the end of improvement of humanity and the advantage of the race, then that work of art or science deserves the encouragement and recognition that is its due. Of all branches of study of human nature, that of the hand has the most powerful claim. By it, one can detect not only the faults of mankind, but the way in which those faults may be redeemed. Wow. It is the key to that cabinet of character in which nature conceals not only the motive power necessary for everyday life, but those latent talents and energies that by the knowledge of oneself we can bring to bear upon our lives. There are few, if any, of us who, looking back upon the past, will not at some time confess to the months, years, and often the greatest parts of lifespan that have been lost through the fault of our parents and our ignorance combined. Yeah, we always blame it on our parents. And our ignorance, yes, I know. I have been ignorant too. Know thyself, the motto of the ancients, is the simplest but grandest sermon that can ring within our ears. By knowledge of nature, we honor nature. Let us then consider the study that can give such knowledge. For by the knowledge of self may we master self, and by improvement of self we may also improve mankind, to the advancement of the race, to the honor of the world, and the glory of those who, in the march of time, will file life's broken ranks and someday take our place. To endeavor to show the solid and sufficient foundations that this study rests upon. I will merely ask my readers to follow the pages of this defense with curiosity, if they wish, but I hope with curiosity tempered by common sense and patience. It shall therefore be my providence to assume the position of a student and not that of a participant. Thus, discarding the argumentative standpoint, do I present the history of the study and the facts upon which it rests, feeling assured that it will result in the satisfactory to the reason, the logic, and the common sense of those who, from its matter, not motive, may examine the study for themselves. To consider the origin of this science, we must take our thoughts back to the earliest days of the world's history, and furthermore, in the consideration of people, the oldest of all, yet one that has survived the fall of empires, nations, and dynasties, and who are today as characteristics and as full of individuality as they were when thousands of years ago the first records of history were written. I allude to those children of the East, the Hindus, the people who philosophy and wisdom are every day being more and more revived. Looking back to the earliest days of history of the known world, we find that the first linguistic records belong to the people under consideration and date back to the far distant cycle of time known as the Aryan civilization. Beyond history we cannot go, but the monuments and caves and temples of India, according to the testimony of archaeologists, all point to a time so far beyond the scant history of our disposal that in examination of such matters our greatest knowledge is dwarfed into infinite nothingness. Our age and era are but as swaddling clothes of a child, our manhood that of an infant in the arms of eternity of time. In endeavoring to trace the origin of palmistry, we are carried back to the confines of a prehistoric age. There we go. finds of the prehistoric age. In endeavoring to trace the origins of palmistry, we are carried back to confines of prehistoric age. History tells us that in the remotest period of the Aryan civilization, it had even a literature of its own. Beyond this, we cannot go, but a fragment of this literature are even now extant. We must therefore conclude that it had a still more remote infancy, but into that night of antiquity we dare not venture. There are no stars to guide, no faded moons to show us light, and so, standing on the borders of the unknown, we gaze into the darkness of the unknown, from the vastness of which we occasionally draw the bones of a mammoth or the fragments of a shrine. They are helps to knowledge. They are the weeds upon the sands of time. They tell us of days before days, of races before races. Verdant islands of civilization sunk forever in the ocean of antiquity. As regards the people who first understood the practices, that study of the hand, we find undisputed proofs of their learning and knowledge. Long before Rome or Greece or Israel was even heard of, the monuments of India point back to an age of learning beyond and still beyond. From that astronomical calculations that the figures in their temples represent, it has been estimated that the Hindus understood the presence and the precision of equinoxes centuries before the Christian era. In some of the ancient cave temples, the mystics' figures of the Sphinx silently tell that such knowledge had been around and possessed and used in advance of all those nations afterwards, so celebrating their learning. It has been demonstrated that to make a change from one sign to another in the zodiacal course of the sun must have occupied at the time at least 2,140 years. And now many centuries elapsed before such changes came to be observed and noticed. It is impossible to even imitate. The intellectual power. The intellectual power which was necessary to make such observations speaks for itself, and yet it is to such a people that we trace the origin and the study of our consideration. With the spread of Hindu teachings into other lands, we do not trace the spread of knowledge of palmistry. The Hindu Vedas are the oldest scriptures that have ever been found, and according to some authorities, they have been the foundation of even the Greek schools of learning. When we consider that palmistry is the offspring of such a race, we should, for such a reason alone, at least treat it with respect and be more inclined to examine it. Claims for justice that we are present. In the examination of these points, we therefore find that the study of the hand is one of the most in the ancient world. History again comes to our assistance and tells us that in the northwest province of India, palmistry was practiced and followed by the Joshi caste from time immemorial to the present day. Wow, many years. It has been interesting to describe here in a few words as possible an extremely ancient and curious book on the markings of the hand, and I was allowed to use and examine during my sojourn to India. This book was one of the greatest treasures of a few Brahmas who possessed and understood it, and was jealously guarded in one of those old cave temples that belonged to the ruins of ancient Hinduism. This strange book was made of human skin, pieced and put together in the most ingenious manner. It was enormous size and contained hundreds of well-drawn illustrations, with records of how, when, and where this or that mark was proved correct. One of the strangest features in connection with it was that it was written in some red liquid which age had failed to spoil or fade. The effect of those vivid red letters on the page of dull yellow skin was most remarkable. By some compound, probably made of herbs, each page was glazed as it was by varnish. But whatever this compound may have been, it seemed to defy time, as the outer covers alone showed the signs of wear and decay. As regards the antiquity of this book, there could be no question. It was apparently written in 3 sections or divisions. The first part belonged to the earliest language of the country, and dated so far back that very few, even the Brahmas, could read or decipher it. There are many such treasures in Hinduistan, but all are so jealously guarded by the Brahmas that neither money, art, nor power will ever release such pledges of the past. As the wisdom of this strange race spread far and wide across the earth, so the doctrines and ideas of palmistry spread and were practiced in other countries. Just as a religion suits itself to the conditions of the race in which it is promulgated, so has palmistry been divided into systems. The most ancient records, however, are those found among the Hindus. It is difficult to trace its path from country to country. In far distant ages, it has been practiced in China, Tibet, Persia, and Egypt. But it is to these days of the Grecian civilization that we owe the present clear and lucid form of the study. The Greek civilization has in many ways been considered the highest and most intellectual in the world. And here it was that palmistry, or chiromancy, from the Greek word cheer, the hand, grew, flourished, and found favor in the sight of those whose names are as stars of honor in the firmament of knowledge. We find Anaxagoras taught and practiced it in 423 BC. We find that Hippopotamus discovered on the altar dedicated to Hermes a book of chiromancy written in gold letters, which he sent as a present to Alexander the Great, as a study worthy the attention of the elevated and inquiring mind. We find it also sanctioned by such men of learning as Aristotle, Pithony, Parthicus, Cardanus, Albertus, Magnus, the Emperor, Augustus, and many others of note. Now, whether the ancient people were more enlightened than we are has long been a question of dispute. The point, however, which has been admitted, and the one that concerns the study most, is that as in those days the great study of mankind was man, it therefore follows that a study like this, their conclusions are far more likely to be right than are those of any age famous for its impendence of destruction, its steam engines, and its commerce. Again, if an age like the present will admit, and has admitted, that the Greek philosophers were men of extraordinary depth of those in learning, and their works, thoughts, and ideas are worthy of the deepest respect, why should we then lightly consider their authority on this subject and throw aside a study that so deeply occupied their attention? And again, if we go back, as we do, to these men for their learning in other matters, why, in the name of all of that is reasonable, should we reject their knowledge in this? Well, there you go. Well, what do you think of that so far? Oh my goodness. So palmistry goes back thousands of years. Thousands and thousands of years. And it goes on about all of these things. So this book is very old. But, and you can look it up for yourself and find all of this stuff online and read it for yourself. But this goes on for pages and pages, and I could just go on and on and on. But we want to get right to the hand. Now, we're going to make a really long show of this, but we are going to get right to it. And We'll scroll down, but who doesn't like learning about their hand? Everybody's got a hand somewhere along the line. You got a hand. What are those lines on there? What do they do? Why are they there? Do you ever wonder that? How can somebody read your hand and know what you're thinking? That's because for thousands of years, people studied the hand. They marked it down in those secret ancient books. Till one day, they had enough information, just like programming a computer. They program a book, and then ancient men of wisdom studied it. The Brahmas studied it, wrote it down, and memorized it until they brought it to you and me through this book and more books. And people like us have studied these books. And what do we think? We learn how to read our palms and get our future and find out where we should be and what we should be. Well, if that's the way it is, let's dive deep back into this. Okay, let's go back to Cheiro's Language of the Hand, Part 1. Chapter 1 of the shapes of the hand and the fingers. Let's learn about our hands and fingers. Palmistry should really mean the study of the hand in its entirety. It is, however, divided into two sections, the twin sciences of cheirogonomy, and cheiromancy. Say that 3 times fast. The first deal with the shape of the hand and fingers and relates to the hereditary influence of the character and disposition, and the second of the 2 lines and markings of the palm to the events of the past, present, and future. Wow. Let's read that again. The first deals with the shape of the hand and the fingers, relates to the hereditary influence of character and disposition, and the second of the 2 lines and markings of the palm to the events of past, present, and your future. It will therefore be readily understood that the second portion of this study cannot be complete without the first. And as in the study, so in the reading of the hand, the student should first observe the shape, the formation, the skin, the nails, etc., before proceeding to judge the lines and markings of the palm. Some people consider this portion of the subject too uninteresting to devote much attention to, and books on palmistry frequently ignore its importance and commence too quickly with the more interesting details of cheiromancy. A little thought will, however, convince the student that such a plan is a mistake and can only result in error, that if the subject is worthy or worth any study at all, it is certainly worth going through thoroughly. Besides, the shape of the hand can be more readily observed than the lines of the palm, and it is therefore all the more interesting, as by the means one can read the character of strangers while sitting in the railroad car, the church, the concert, or the salon. Today's maybe a coffee house, huh? Or maybe a restaurant or a bar. The characteristics of visions, nations, is shown by the shape of the hand. It is also a fascinating branch of the study, and one very much overlooked. Later, I will endeavor to point out the leading characteristics that I myself have observed in relation to this portion of the subject, the varying shape of hands and their suitability to various kinds of occupation, also worthy of note. And although by the exercise of will we can alter and make up in a certain degree for almost any constitutional defect, yet it is undoubtedly the case that certain types are more suited for one work than the other, which is the more immediate providence of cheiromancy or cheirogonomy to determine. We will therefore at once proceed to consider the different types of hands with their various modifications in their relation to the temperament and character. There are 7 types of hands, each of which may again be subdivided into 7 varieties. The 7 types are the elementary or the lowest type. Number 2, the square or useful hand. The spatulate or the nervous type, active type. It must be that if you tap your fingers or something, you know. The philosophical or naughty hand. Oh boy, do I know those naughty hands. Naughty, you get it? Naughty hands. The conic or the artistic type. Yeah, I've seen the artistic type. I can picture that. The psychic or the idealistic hand. And then the mixed hand. Well, there you go. I think I can picture those hands in my head. And I'm sure you have too. The 7 varieties are formed by the blending of the 7 types. Among civilized nations, the elementary being rarely found in its purity. We therefore commence with the square, divided into 7 heads, as for example, the square with square fingers, short, the square with square fingers, long, the square with knotty fingers, the square with spatulate fingers, and the square with iconic fingers, the square with psychic fingers, and the square with mixed fingers. Okay, and there you go. Here's your hand. Look at that. That looks kind of like a working hand. Elementary hand. The elementary hand. Go figure. Does your hand look like that? Kind of looks like my hand. Okay. Oh boy, I got an elementary hand. Jeez. Well, that sucks. No. This hand naturally belongs to the lowest type of mentality. Oh man, I really screwed that one up, didn't I? This hand naturally belongs to the lowest type of mentality. In appearance, it is coarse and clumsy. Oh, well, yeah. With large, thick, heavy palm, short fingers. Oh, I got really long fingers. And short nails. Oh, well, my nails aren't that short. Some books on palmistry state that to show intellectuality, the fingers should always be longer than the palm. But an examination of this statement will show that it is not correct. It has not been proved that the fingers have been found longer than the palm. That they may be nearly as long or as long, there can be no doubt, but it is very rare case to find them even of the same length. When, however, in proportion to the size of the palm, the fingers are long, it indicates a more intellectual nature than when they are short. So if you got really long fingers, you must be intellectual. In Dr. Karen's work on the physiognomy of the human, physiognomy, I cannot pronounce that word. You know, I'm the king of mispronunciation here. He states that the bones of the palm form among the brute animals almost the whole hand. The deduction, therefore, is that more the palm dominates the hand, the more does the animal nature rule. Well, there you go. Indicates the intellect. When they are short, Dr. King. Okay. Oh boy, this is something else. The deduction, more than the animal nature, whole hand. Oh boy, there are. Okay, the deduction there for the palm dominates the hand, the more the animal nature rules. This is the important point in the elementary hand. The palm is also thick and coarse, and the fingers short and clumsy. There are also very few lines to be seen on the palm. The people possessing such a type have very little mental capacity, and what they do possess leans more to the order of the brute. They have little or no control over their passions. Love, or of form, color, and beauty does not appeal to them. The thumb of such hands is short and thick, with the upper part of the nail plagued heavily, full, and generally square. Such people are violent in temper, passionate, but not courageous. If they commit murder, it is in the fury and in the spirit of destruction. They possess a certain low cunning, but the cunning of instinct, not reason. These are people without aspirations, but eat, drink, sleep, and die. Well, I don't have that kind of hand. I got I got longer fingers. Yeah, anyway, thank goodness. The square hand means the palm square is at the wrist, square at the base of the fingers, and the fingers themselves square. Such a type is also called the useful, because it is found in so many walks of life. With this type, the nails are generally short and square. People with such a hand are orderly, punctual, and precise in manner, not, however, from any innate grace of nature, but more from conformity to custom and habit. They respect authority. They love discipline. They have a place for everything, and everything is kept in its place, not only in their household, but in their brains. They respect law and order and are slaves to custom. They are not quarrelsome, but are determined in opposition. They prefer to reason and to instinct, to peace, to war, and are methodical in work and habit. They are endowed with great preference, but are tedious, not resigned. They are not enthusiastic over poetry or art. They ask for the material. They win success in practical things. In religion, they will not go to extremes. They prefer substance to show and dogma to ideas. They are not adaptable to people or versatile. They have little originality or imagination, but in work they have great application, force of character, strength of will, and often outdistance their more brilliant, inspirational rivals. They naturally love the exact sciences and are practical study, all practical study. They encourage agriculture and commerce. They love home and the duties of home, but are not demonstrative in affection. They are sincere and true in promise, stanch in friendship, strong in principle, and honest in business. Their greatest fault is that they are inclined to reason by a 12-inch rule and disbelieve all they cannot understand. So are you one of those people? Wow. Interesting, is it? Well, that was cool. So do you have the elementary hand, which is the lowest type? Are you a brute? No mental clarity? Live from means to means? Have a violent nature? You may have the elementary hand. Do you have the square hand? Are you a worker? Are you pretty much a worker? You go about the day, you do what you're supposed to do. Yeah, there you go. The square and useful hand. That's a working hand. And we're going to drop off right here. And we're going to catch you next time for part 2 of Cheiro's Language of the Hand, where we'll be talking more, and we will find out from the next one. That page just broke. Next one, we're going to be talking more about the square hand. And my book just broke in half because it's so darn old. That sucks. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that. And with that, I bid you adieu. Remember, go out and do something nice for somebody and give them a smile. If you got nothing else to give them a smile. Do some hocus pocus. Put on your wizard cap and enjoy the days. Have some fun. And remember, go out, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love you all. Peace, everybody.